Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cooking with Big Mark.
Good afternoon, folks. Today, as I mentioned before in a previous session, we're going to talk about some different culinary terms or ingredients that are becoming more and more prolific as our food footprint expands with all this global interaction and globalization. And the four things we're going to talk about are Soffrito, kimchi, burrata, and rice wine vinegar. So the first one is the Soffrito, which is actually a Spanish term, but it's used basically in Italian cooking. And what it is a basis. It's chopped up vegetables, usually celery, carrots, and onions, that are sauteed slowly for 3/4 an hour at a time to develop a little caramelization. And what you're doing is building up a flavor base to be used in sauces, soups, braises, stews, and all those kind of things. It's just like a regular flavor enhancer. And each cuisine, ethnic cuisine, has its own combination. The Spanish, for example, will use they'll add tomatoes and garlic sometimes. The Dominican Republic adds vinegar. Cuba adds garlic and tomatoes and red peppers. So everybody sort of has their own combination. And of course, there's the French one, which is a totally different word, and that's called mirepoix. And that's the same thing. And of course, we have the Cajun Trinity, as they call it, down all your étouffées and Cajun dishes are all made with the Trinity, as they call it, which are green bell peppers, onion, and celery. So it's all just a flavor base, each one having different things to impart, different flavors, but mainly to give a base for any sauce that you're going to do. So that just makes sense. The second one is called kimchi. Kimchi is probably the Korean national dish. It's eaten almost at every meal in some iteration or other. It's sometimes it's not so mild, or is mild, and other times it's terribly hot. And what it originated from is the Koreans have long winters and they wanted to preserve vegetables. So what they do is put them in these big crocks and put salt with them and start fermentation. And they would actually bury them in the old days in the ground and cover them, then go out either in the cellar or somewhere else and pull them up, 1 month every winter. So I was getting some fresh, not fresh vegetables, but the vegetable flavor or the calories, vitamins, etc., that come from it. It's high in fiber. It's low in calories, and it's very heavy on probiotics, which is the big thing now. It's getting into the gut fermentation. That's supposed to be good for your internal organs. So it's made again mostly from cabbage, but other vegetables go in it. And it gets its kick from a paste made of chili powder, garlic, ginger, sugar, and sometimes a little bit of fish sauce. And red peppers are added too, so it has a little kick to it. Now, people say, is sauerkraut the same as kimchi? And the thing is, yeah, basically it is. But all that's in sauerkraut basically is cabbage. Sometimes they'll add a few other root vegetables to it, but normally it's just cabbage. And that is just has salt, and it does not have this extra paste kick to it. So kimchi is sort of like sauerkraut on steroids, I guess would be the way to discuss it. So it's good for you, and people like it. It gives a lot of flavor to the meal. I don't like the hot stuff so much, and I'm old enough now to like to taste my food, what's in there, and not have my mouth cauterized by so many people now with these hot sauces and all these things they put in. I don't know why some dishes bother to flavor foods when all they do is kill it with these heavy spices, but what do I know? The next one is burrata, which is a semi-soft Italian cheese, really based on the same thing as mozzarella, but it is not mozzarella. The mozzarella usually original was from buffalo milk in Italy, but now it's from buffalo and fresh mozzarella anyway, from buffalo milk and cow's milk. And what they do is when the process of making the mozzarella, they'll make a pouch out of it and insert some stringy curds, the cheese, and cream, and sort of round it off. It's a little bit larger size than a golf ball. The name itself, Beretta, means buttered, and it is very rich. And it's something you normally use for an appetizer. One of my favorite ways of doing it, that one my niece loves, is Beretta surrounded by sliced prosciutto with a fig sauce over it. A nice piece of crusty bread makes a super appetizer. But I will accept almost any sauce, fruit sauces or any other thing, but savory sauces as well. And it's a very rich and creamy addition, to your appetizer plate. The last one is rice wine vinegar. Most of the vinegars that we know in the West, Europe and everything, are made from wine. However, the Japanese vinegar, which is the origin of the rice vinegar, and now China and other Asian countries, it's made from cereals, which would be maize, malt, grain, so on and so forth. And they do the same process of developing it, and it's fermented to get the acetic acid going, and the result is it's liquid that adds flavor to things. And mostly where a lot of the wine vinegar is used is with sushi, and it's and when you see rice wine vinegar, it's nothing you can drink. It is it's strictly as a little bit of a sour taste, and I use it a lot in when I'm making vinaigrettes, just to give a little kick to it, a little sour. But it's a lightly sweet and sour vinegar, and it's used mostly in Asian cooking. But again, every cuisine has its vinegary type thing, and this is the contribution of the Asian part of the world. And the same thing, all these basic principles are the same. They just arrived at different means, but they all achieve the same ends. So that's the 4 terms for today. What say you, Mark?
Oh, this is very interesting. Last night, as I said to you earlier today, Sean and I were watching your favorite Vivian Howard and her porridge episode, and how every culture has a porridge, and every culture has some version of flatbread. And it's just it's a very interesting thing. Every culture has their version of stewed meats and vegetables. But that's not what I'm talking about. I thought I would talk about a new classic cocktail that I've put my own spin on for the menu at the restaurant I'm bartending at. And the espresso martini has come back in a big way. There's been articles everywhere about how it's becoming trendy again. It was originally apocryphally developed by a bartender who had a model ask for something that would chill her out and speed her up. And certainly it's like it's like a speedball, or a more sophisticated version of Four Loko. It is what it is. But espresso has such a wonderful aromatic complexity to it that it does lend itself very nicely. Of course, you're dealing with your base spirit in any espresso martini is going to be vodka, because it's neutral. I mean, you could certainly, I think actually white whiskey would be quite good as well. Excuse me, or pisco. Yeah, that nice mellowness.
No more gin. I thought gin used to be the main martini thing, wasn't it?
No, not in these, because you could do it. I think it would kind of fight the coffee notes. I don't know, the juniper and coffee would be super awesome together.
The flavor would be too heavy. Okay, excuse me, go ahead.
No, but it's interesting in trying to put together my own version of it. It all came out of a bag of spinach that I had bought and then didn't cook. And I was like, well, I've got to cook this. It's about to go bad. And being your son, instead of just doing something simple, I decided I would try to make my own gringo sog paneer. And it came out very nice, not authentic. It's just a gay dude of Irish descent in Chicago is not going to be an expert on Indian cooking unless they put in a lot of effort, and I have not. But I needed garam masala for it. And since we do have a lot of spices in the cabinet these days, I realized I could make my own because I had all the ingredients. And so this inspired me to try to make a turbinado syrup with some of those ingredients. And I'm now using that syrup in the espresso martini I put together for the bar program. And so, a garam masala can have up to 30 ingredients, but in this case, the most recent one I made was probably about 6 ingredients. It was star anise, allspice, because I didn't have any cloves or whole nutmeg on hand, as well as pink peppercorns, because I thought that would be kind of interesting taste-wise. And I can't remember what else. A sort of a kitchen sink approach. But the real, sort of star of that in terms of flavoring your martini is the star anise, because it gives that slight licorice tinge. And then I'm using vodka, of course. And there's a lot of coffee liqueurs out there. I really like Mr. Black's. It's an Australian product. And they do add some cane sugar in the process, but it's really pretty dry. It's not, overly sweet like Kahlua or something like that. And then to add a whole nother note of complexity, I like to use Galliano Ristretto, which is their espresso liqueur. And that really almost has the quality of an Amaro or even a bitters. It really adds complexity and is definitely not sweet. It's much more like a bitter, and adds a really interesting note. And if you pair that with some of the spice notes in the syrup, and then of course some cold brew coffee, I found that doing cold brew is a lot easier than trying to pull espresso shots and then get your espresso chilled, because of course the temperature of your ingredients in a cocktail definitely affect the degree to which it'll be diluted, and you certainly don't want to put hot espresso on top of ice. You'd end up with something very muddy. But it's really come out well. So I guess it's on trend. That's my own spin on the trend. We'll say that. And I do find it fascinating the way that you can take these traditional foodways and really use them to add some spice and interest to cocktail recipes. So in any case, this has been Cooking with Big Mark, and thank you all for tuning in.
See you later.
All right.